Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, we are less than a week away from the Hall of Fame game. Chargers football's just around the corner, and we got some awesome images, stories, highlights coming in from training camp recently, and even another rumor mill floating around, man. You guys hear what happened to Christain Wilkins yesterday in the NFL with the Raiders? Absolutely insane. Long story short, he's cut. We're going to talk about this because a lot of Chargers fans asking whether or not he's a name we should be looking to be adding just before the season kicks off. That would be absolutely nuts. We'll talk more about that here in just a minute, but more so highlighting some of the awesome stuff that's unfolding at training camp right now. In particular, this week, the defensive line. I remember last year, in particular, a lot of us worried about what the interior defensive line looks like. Jim Harbaugh labeled it kind of a strength in some ways, and it was improved overall, but does need a little bit more polishing. Right now in training camp, we're starting to see evidence that we are trending in the right direction. So the ins and outs of training camp, should Christain Wilkins become a Los Angeles Charger, all that and more after a word from our sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take a look at the offer on screen. Get ready for football season, baby. It's coming. You can go on Underdog right now and start putting in some work for the NFL season, including the home opener for the Chargers. Technically, the Brazil game in week 1 should be a good time. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. 1 minute time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Christain Wilkins to the Los Angeles Chargers. Could that happen? And some updates from training camp. Let's go ahead and start with the big one here, man. That Chargers fans, I've been getting a lot of questions about this. A lot of messages like, Director, is this something you want to do? Is this a move for the team? And first off, let's see what in the heck just happened. Because Christain Wilkins, I remember the day that we saw the signing from the Raiders, I was worried because Christain Wilkins with the Miami Dolphins was coming off of like an 8 or 9 sack season. He's been one of the best defensive linemen in football, for the last few seasons now. And then going to the Raiders, I definitely wasn't excited to see that. However, in the Telesco era of Raiders football, nothing really worked out, and this is definitely one of the cherries on top where it ultimately would amount to almost nothing. Let's read this together real quick. Raiders are releasing defensive tackle Christain Wilkins with the designation of terminated vested veteran, which basically means that he did a no-no and the team was allowed to release him and basically not have to pay him anything. Due to how Wilkins treated his rehab from foot injury he suffered last season, the Raiders voided the remaining $35 million of guaranteed money left in Wilkins' contract last month, and today Wilkins filed a grievance with the NFLPA. So ultimately what that means is that the Raiders, they found out he wasn't rehabbing the way that they wanted. They got upset about that. They released him. And then on top of that, his guaranteed money would not be paid out. That's a whole lot of drama revolving the Vegas Raiders right now with a player who is ultimately very, very good. And there's some evidence to suggest that maybe, some of the ways that he was handling his rehab definitely was not the right thing to do. I remember seeing a video of him maybe dancing around the weight room a little bit. They were doing some, whatever, and it looked innocent enough, but for a player that is rehabbing, getting paid to be, rehabbing an injury, that can be a big deal. There was also another detail, if I remember, where the Raiders wanted him to get another surgery, and he opted not to do that so he could play a little bit sooner, but that combined with not rehabbing in the way that they've deemed appropriate probably led to this decision for him to ultimately be cut. And honestly, there's a lot of drama revolving around this for the player individual. He's pissed. That's all I'm going to say. From what we've heard, Christain Wilkins is not happy. Of course, that being shown with him filing a grievance with the NFLPA, but there's a lot revolving in this situation. Ultimately, to me, just kind of looking in, outside looking in, I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. I guess it's good that we don't have to deal with him twice a year. That's kind of where I stopped, where the buck stopped with me. And then I started getting a lot of messages and questions like, Director, should we be adding Christain Wilkins to the roster. What an insane move this would be. And to that, I did post something to the light of Ben Herbert has the chance to do the funniest thing ever right now. If the Chargers, let's say if the Chargers fans weren't the only ones that just want him, let's say the Chargers say, hey, look at this. We got an opportunity to add a Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle basically for free. How crazy of a move would that be? How much would that piss Raiders fans off? That's the only point I need, by the way. If it's going to piss off a bunch of Raiders fans, I think I'm about it. And it would be an insane ad. But of course, Chargers fans, you got to understand, this comes with some serious risk, right? The rehab is a big thing. I would need to know where he is in terms of his progression in that rehab. If him goofing off really did push back his rehab timetable. If declining the surgery has pushed him back any, all of that would ultimately determine a signing for me. But I will say, if there is a chance that he can get back on the field sooner rather than later, I'm not even saying like week 1. I'm saying like maybe mid-season, late season, early next season. If there's a chance for that, then I think Ben Herbert could maybe make it happen. The Chargers have some of the best strength conditioning in the league, some of the best medicals right now, which is a drastic turn from where it used to be. And I'm not going to say never. And then on top of that, when I got looking into it, right, I was like, okay, Chargers fans, let's go ahead and entertain the idea of Christain Wilkins coming to the Chargers. The evidence started stacking up where it's like, okay, this might actually work. This may not be a bad move, and ultimately it would be the most hilarious thing to happen to the Raiders and Chargers in a long time. One of the bigger incentives that you're going to find for a player in this situation is when he is pissed at his current team. Christain Wilkins is not happy with the Raiders. There is a lot going on between those two. The friction is real, and the incentive for Christain Wilkins to go play for the Broncos, the Chiefs, and yes, even the Chargers is significantly high. He's going to want to stick it to the man that stuck it to him. You know what I mean? He would jump at the chance to sack Geno Smith twice a year on the Chargers. And that's ultimately enough incentive for players in my mind. Secondly, he would likely have to sign a prove-it deal, something that Joe Ortiz would be jumping at the opportunity to do so. That's because the issues revolving around Christain Wilkins are significant, right? If the evidence is there and it's very clear and obvious that he was not taking his rehab seriously, that is pretty significant. The declining the other surgery, that is significant. The injury, the player's attitude, ultimately, I would say is a big factor here as well. These are significant things. But the Chargers have become a destination for significant change. We've seen it all over the roster, man, from players that didn't live up to their first-round potential out to players that, were bouncing around the league because they just weren't a fit because of their work ethic or this or that. The Chargers have been able to give life to players who maybe have fallen off in some way, shape, or form. We've seen them do it already in the last few days. We got Nyheim Hines in here, who hasn't played the last couple of seasons. He's actually looking pretty good in training camp right now. This is the place to bounce back and to find new life and to ultimately get new contracts. We saw, in terms of money paid, in terms of contracts signed, the Chargers had a really, really good turnover rate last year from players that were falling off to now are playing for new NFL teams or staying here with the Chargers with new contracts. So it's a good destination for Christain Wilkins. And yeah, there's a lot of things surrounding him. The attitude thing, the work ethic thing's probably the biggest one. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, there is a player on this roster who serves as the best example of this and why the Chargers, they wouldn't stop at signing Christain Wilkins because of that. And it's because one of the first players that we're going to talk about in training camp who's having a standout week in Teair Tart. Teair Tart, I've told you guys this several times. He bounced around the league a lot because of quote-unquote lack of work ethic, lack of motivation, lack of effort, right? Things that were really frowned upon throughout the league caused Teair Tart to bounce around several different teams. I remember the Texans, the Titans, the Dolphins. He could not stick around until ultimately the Chargers took a shot on him, and now he's turned out to be one of the better defensive linemen on this squad. It's fascinating. So I would think all that put together, Christain Wilkins, I'm going to say if it lines up, I'm about it. Ultimately to piss off Raiders fans, but can you guys imagine if we can get him back to 50% of what he was, even 60, 70%, that would be awesome. Remember, 9 sacks in 2023, his last season with the Dolphins. That's kind of who you're hoping to get. if you can get Christain Wilkins back on the field. But hey, if he doesn't, he's at least not playing against us this upcoming season, because that was an ad I was a bit worried about early on in having to deal with him and Max Crosby at the same time. Now, getting into some of the fun stuff from training camp, mainly defensive line is what we're focusing in on, something that I've been a little bit stressed out about over the past couple of seasons. It's looking really, really nice, starting with Teair Tart, who we just got done praising for his bounce back with the Chargers. There's an element happening here in the Chargers defensive line that I think is quite fascinating. Last year, we brought in Poona Ford, who, like a lot of players that we just mentioned, was on the downward, part of his career. He wasn't the same Poona Ford as he was with the Seattle Seahawks, and we were looking at maybe a guy who can, like a flyer who can fill in for a couple of games, you know what I mean? He turned out to be one of the best defensive linemen on the roster, and that, and I'm not saying that the coaches were perceiving him as, like a flyer or this and that. I mean, us, the fans, were like, okay, it's Poona Ford. We know this guy's been here forever. He ended up having some insane numbers with the Chargers. He went on to get a nice contract from the Rams. I'm starting to think we're going to see another story like that on the Chargers this year by the name of Teair Tart. I think Teair Tart could become the new Poona Ford, and we're starting to see evidence of that in training camp. He's taken on guys like Mekhi Becton, getting in for pressure on Justin Herbert. He's also been able to stop Omarion Hampton in the run game. He really is looking like a very complete defensive lineman, which is really what we were hoping for. So far, so good. Best case scenario that he can step in and be that Poona Ford of last year in the 25 defense. It's looking like we're trending in that direction. Jesse Minter says that he's in his element. He's finally, playing the way that we had hoped. His ceiling is looking really high. It looks awesome. And Teair Tart, man, if he can continue on this trend, if he can continue growing and showing us that he can handle that responsibility of more reps, I think we may have something here. I really, really do. Next up, Justin Aboigbe. This is really funny because this is a player that I had called in one of my videos as a potential breakout in 2025. I think I've done a couple of those now, and Aboigbe has been among the top of my list of, hey, this could be a dude that really shines this season. And it's because of how much faith and hype and excitement that Jim Harbaugh had last year when drafting the guy. There was a lot of excitement around Aboigbe, but ultimately he wasn't ready. He really didn't see the field. We don't really have a lot to show you in terms of his production in 2024. But now moving into 2025, there's some availability there. Poona Ford's gone. Morgan Fox is gone. There's opportunities on this defensive line. And like we've said many times on this channel, I think Aboigbe could take advantage of that. And he's starting to show signs of that as we've gotten the pads on finally and played more physical in practice. We predicted him for a jump this year, and we're starting to see that. He also added 20 pounds of muscle in the offseason, opting him to move more to play interior defensive line, defensive tackle, interior defensive end, or inside defensive end. It looks really, really good for Justin Aboigbe right now, who's already coming in with some really nice, traits. Very strong player, freakishly strong player, who had some nice pass rushing moves, but he's starting to really look good against the run. So he should be somewhere around 300 pounds right now. I'm going to say like 310 if he indeed added 20 pounds of muscle. And it's starting to work. He made 4 standout plays in day 2 of training camp in pads, and it's not over with that. He's been all over running backs like Vidal and Haskins, getting after the quarterback, creating pressure. He's looking more like a strong answer versus the run game. That's great. We need more of that. So Justin Aboigbe, another player that's taking that step forward and giving us options on the defensive line, where like at the top of the season, I was like, I'm excited for Caldwell, but all these other guys is kind of a wait and see thing. A mid-round pick from last season, 4th rounder, right? Being able to step up in 2024 or 25, this is awesome. This is exactly the kind of thing that you need. And Aboigbe, man, it would be awesome to see him step into that role. Another pick, was he a 3rd rounder? I don't remember. It's been a while. Tito Agbonia. Another player that is seeing some nice plays in practice so far in training camp. And it's another player that would be nice to see a jump from. And we are seeing a jump significantly in his pass rushing ability. So far in training camp. That has definitely grown. He sacked a quarterback, I think it was Heineke, with Bud Dupree. They caused a pick on Heineke. So seeing that, because Tito was already decent versus the run, if we can keep him on the field first and foremost, he has had some issues there, but also add to his pass rushing effectiveness, I think that Tito has an opportunity to really step up too. And that's what's exciting this year. Yeah, it's a little, sketchy because we don't have Morgan Fox or Poona Ford anymore, but the opportunity is there, and it looks like players are starting to step up. Other players that we expected to step up, Jamari Caldwell and Naquan Jones. These are other guys that freshly added to the roster. A lot of us have high hopes for the rookie, and we're starting to see some plays again. I think the highlights you're going to see from training camp so far: Tierra Tart, Justin Boygby, but Caldwell and Jones also making some play. Jamari Caldwell, the rookie, made a few plays, looked strong versus the run in particular, which is very nice. Naquan Jones also had a nice day versus the run too. So the Chargers have added a lot of reinforcements when it comes to defending the run, which is definitely nice. And both these guys should rotate in great. The Chargers are ultimately, in my opinion, looking better than expected on the defensive line. So that's something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on that defensive line. There was also, is it Deshaun Hand? Is that his name? Also another guy that we need to keep an eye on. And then maybe the adding of a Christain Wilkins. But ultimately what I want you to walk away from in this video is that the defensive line is looking better than expected. And if we can raise our stat there on a defense that already looked really, really good last year, watch out for the Chargers to become a very dangerous defensive unit in 25. So defensive line looking great. Some other things to cap off this video, get you guys caught up with some of the ins and outs of training camp. We finally saw Najee Harris make his return. I'm not going to say it was the best thing because, yeah, you're seeing something a little bit intriguing here. He's got the glasses on. I think that's a face mask that you see. At first I thought it was, him smiling. He had a beard or something, but no, he's got the mask. He's got the big glasses. We don't know what anything looks like yet in terms of him playing, what the eye injury is, what the rehab is, or the return time is. We don't know anything yet. All we know is that he's been spotted, which I guess is good. But this didn't instill a lot of confidence in me that it isn't a serious injury. I'm hoping that he's fine, and I'm hoping that he can play week 1 versus the Chiefs, but that was definitely peculiar. Another storyline that's starting to grow, and one that's been the highlight of the offseason, has been Ronda Gadston. The hype continues to grow. He continues to make plays, but we know he's going to be a pretty decent receiver, maybe even a great receiver in terms of tight end. It is his effort as a blocker, however, that has been turning heads this week. We've seen him provide nice lanes for running backs like Nyheim Hines. There's a really big play I think I saw on Twitter where Nyheim Hines popped off for like a 10, 15-yard run with a block from Ronda Gadston, which is very nice to see, man. If we can see Ronda Gadston have a more complete, skill set that keeps him on the field more, I think that it gives him a better opportunity to make plays even in his rookie season. Imagine if Gadsden is everything that we've hoped he was as a receiver and then also a half-decent blocker. You got yourself a pretty nice prospect going into the 26 season as maybe a tight end 1. So Ronda Gadsden, he's still, in a lot of ways, the off-season standout, the training camp guy this year, and now we're starting to see other elements of his game add to that fact. Very exciting to see. Another player that really stood out so far, Junior Colson. As the pads came on, his play went up. And he's had some awesome days, too. 2 run stuffs and a likely sack from Junior Colson. He's starting to play really fast, really physical, really up to speed with the other linebackers. And Minter is very impressed. Obviously, he's going to be impressed being with him since his days in Michigan. He sees him growing very quickly. It's nice, man. And the Chargers linebackers are starting to look like a strength around here. If Colson can come up to speed and you got Henley and Perryman, it's looking like an unlikely strength on the roster, and that's something to definitely get excited about. To help wrap up this video, a couple more things to keep in mind here. The Chargers receivers continue to shine. Trey Harris is out there making some excellent plays. The route running is looking crisp and clean. No caffeine. KSL also making some highlights out there, man. You guys have seen Keandre Lambert-Smith out here, dude. This dude has been unbelievable. I had to put out a TikTok on him yesterday with some of the plays that he's been making. He looks insane. You guys were right, too. You guys, I kept saying, who does he look like? Who does he look like in terms of how he catches the football? A little Antonio Brown in there, a little CeeDee Lamb in there. You can definitely see it, but man, who knows what we got in this guy, man. I think KLS could turn out to be something very exciting. Some other notes here to share with you guys. Conklin looks like he's got some nice hands at tight end. Very short out, caught in traffic. He looked awesome in that play. Even though it was a short game, it shows us that we've got ourselves some nice hands at the tight end position. Quentin Johnston is having another strong camp this year. He's up to like 5 or 6, maybe even 7 touchdowns in training camp so far. Yes, there's been a couple of drops here and there. I'm starting to not embrace it, but come to expect it as part of his game. There's going to be things that suck, and dropping the football, that sucks, and that's going to be called out by fans every single time, but it doesn't overwrite the good that he does as well. He can be a clutch player. He's scoring touchdowns at least. He had 8 last year. Who knows how many he'll have this season, and that's part of what we can hope grows as the drop issues shrink. McConkey is looking great as always. He's actually looking really big right now too. He looks like he's put on some good weight on him. And then last couple things, Omarion Hampton, dude. Omarion, he broke some of the equipment when in the sled, one of the sleds. He broke one of them because he hit it so hard. Ooh, that's exactly what you want to see from your physical running back. And then lastly, a comment that I think that we need to take seriously here is Jasir Taylor may be the most improved player of the offseason so far, which is definitely significant. We're going to have to keep an eye on that nickelback and see what he looks like coming into the year. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, and who knows, man, Christian